So a little while ago, I did a code snippet video on my Raft mod that spawned in a meteor shower above the player, and I detailed on how that worked and how I modded the game to be able to do that isn't necessarily vanilla to the game. This time, I wanted to show you how chance cubes work and how it spawns in large structures and gives these cool effects that I can do. So in the Chance Cubes mod, which is a Minecraft mod that I develop and maintain, you can have these giant chance cubes spawn in large structures like this woodland mansion. Now I have modified this a bit from its in-mod version to have the blocks spawn in this dropping fashion that you see here. So I want to kind of show you the code, kind of explain how this whole process works, and hopefully you guys find this entertaining like you did last time. So the way this all works is, first off, I have found an actual woodland mansion in the game and copied the blocks out into a JSON file that I will show you in a second. From that file, the mod reads it in and stores it kind of as is. And when you then open the reward, or open the giant chance cube to get the reward, it will spawn these blocks in, and I've modified it to have these blocks fall. Normally the mod just places them in this printing fashion, however they don't fall into place. But I have added the ability for the blocks that are spawned in to fall, and what it does is essentially takes the properties and code structure that the sand and gravel blocks have and applies it to these blocks, and I have modified their code to, while they fall down, to stop when they get to a specific point and just become regular blocks in that sense. So as this finishes up here, you can see it looks pretty cool, and I was very happy with how it turned out and how it looked. Obviously, the whole block process isn't perfect. There are some blocks that don't take well to being falling and put in place, and of course you get some of these rendering mishaps but whatnot, but that's kind of more just on the game and not much I can do modded wise. But anyways, that is what the reward looks like when you actually get it. Again, tweaked a bit, but overall very cool animation, just kind of a very cool process in general. So moving over to the code here, you will see at first this is the JSON file. I have a different extension for it, but this is the JSON file for the entire mansion. As you can see, quite large. The way it works and stores it all in the JSON file here is, first off is the block ID. To be specific, this is not the actual block ID in the game. Block IDs are actually gone now in the Java version of Minecraft, but these are just a placeholder block ID relative to this JSON file. And then it gives of course, a delimiter here, and then it tells you how many in a row of these blocks there are. So I actually based this off of an existing schematic system from Minecraft. I forget this schematic system name. I think they're called schematics. But basically the way it worked is it had a array of blocks, and it just listed out all of the blocks converting from 3D to a one-dimensional array, and it just listed them all out in an order like this. I've condensed this to where if they're multiple in a row, it takes them and says, instead of 70 zeros on a row, we convert this to 0 by 70. And that's how the compression works a little bit, so that way it's a little more compressed. As you can see, you'll see it's quite large, especially with a very large structure like the Woodland Mansion. But scrolling past the blocks here, as you get towards the bottom, you'll see the conversion from ID up here to the actual type. So here is the block type. I guess ID 0 is just grass, and it stores it as ID 0. Cobblestone is 1, dirt is 2. So you can see basically the lookup table to convert from ID up here to the actual block. And then I also support for tile entities, which are something else I won't really get into, but that's how it is all stored in file. And then the game loads it up and stores it into what I have as a schematic reward type, and the schematic part simply actually holds the JSON, actually holds the file name because it does it load on the fly to save memory. But essentially what happens when you open the giant chance cube, what it'll do is it'll start a repeating task. This task will find the current block to drop and spawn. It will then spot in the world, and based upon the block it's spawning into the world, if it is falling, it'll spawn in a falling block here. Otherwise it'll place in world. So if it's spawning a falling block, this is kind of the hack part of all this, and that I actually made a custom block class, which is an entity, and this entity is a falling block. So what it does is you provide the block you want this entity to be. It uses that block to kind of mask itself and render in the correct visual. And what it does is I've actually taken this code from the sand block and edited it so that way it'll just fall no matter what until it reaches the block position where I want it to be. At which case it stops the block and just places it there. And it kind of follows what it would do if it was just placing the block normally. And so through all that, it just continuously loops through, adding a small delay between each block spawn in, and either places the block in world or spawns it as a falling block. And that's how it gets this whole printing like effect to where blocks are being continuously placed, and it just keeps placing them until the entire array that you saw in the file is completed. And once that is done, it just stops its execution and the reward is complete. So hopefully this has made some sense and gives you a little cool behind the scenes of how the chance cube reward system works. Obviously it's a lot more complex than this. Actually, it's not too much more complex, but that's a very basic overview. And yeah, so hopefully you guys have enjoyed this. I will try and do more of these in the future, but until then, peace out and see you guys all later.